Morning, family. This is Ricky, and welcome to Hope for Today. Happy Monday, church. Come on, people. Get up out your bed, bend the knee, and let us thank God for another day. Top of the morning, everybody. We're going to act like a thing is so, even though it ain't so, in order that it might be so, because God said so. Believing Jesus for victory this week. I want you to hear this one line that I have for you today. Let us learn how to let good enough be good enough. Let us learn how to let good enough be good enough. There's only one perfect person, folks. Jesus is his name. And although we should strive for excellence, and we should strive to be the best we can be, and I'm not negating any of that as true and what God calls us to, some of us can find ourselves guilty of wanting perfection so much that we don't allow good enough to be good enough. You've heard the old adage say so many times before that perfect is the enemy of good. You know, I've been working for a church now for most of the years I have been alive. And one of the things you learn in the church world real quickly is to let good enough be good enough. That perfect is often the most elusive goal, insofar that we are all imperfect people. And you learn a long time ago that good enough is good enough. Corporations call this the 80-20 rule. There's 80% that we can really set up to work well, sustainable, but there's always a 20% spoilage factor, right? Not everything is going to be perfect, but it's good enough to keep on moving on. Let good enough be good enough. Paul is talking about the grace of God as he's going through this issue whereby his health possibly was not perfect. It was not as good as he wanted to be. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, after he has pleaded with the Lord about this 3 times, Jesus says to him, verse 9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." It was God's way of saying that I can still show up when things aren't perfect. I can still work through people who aren't perfect. I can still do good things in imperfect situations. Why? Because the grace of the Lord is sufficient for you. Is there anything in your life right now that you've kind of been trying to hammer the nail even deeper into the board when the board is already stuck to the wall you were trying to nail it to? Maybe that's a situation where you need to let good enough be good enough. Some of us are kind of guilty of insisting even more excellence out of our children or out of our spouse and out of our coworkers, out of our friends, out of our church, out of our country. And maybe if we scaled back, maybe some of those things, though, are worth critiquing. Maybe there's other things that are, maybe the Holy Spirit is saying, you know what, that's actually good enough to keep on keeping on. The story is told of the inventor of Novocaine, right? The stuff that, you know, if you're having Novocaine, you ain't having a good day. And his goal was to come up with a general anesthetic. But physicians deemed that Novocaine was not powerful enough for a general anesthetic. And he was furious about this. In fact, he spent the next 40 years of his life trying to perfect Novocaine, but unsuccessfully. However, over the years, dentists started to realize that although it's not strong enough for bodily surgery, it is strong enough for dental surgery. In fact, it works just perfect. And even though he was achieving all sorts of accolades and success because of what he was doing with Novocaine for dentistry, he consumed himself with continuing to pursue Novocaine for surgery. And as such, he didn't even get to enjoy a lot of the fruit of what he had accomplished because he didn't let good enough be good enough. Sometimes there's some things in your life that you've worked on that's actually fulfilling some good purpose. And sometimes God says to let that good be good enough for you. That's hope for today. I'll see you next time.